I'm Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter, and the head coach for Job Search, CoachingHQ.com, and welcome to another episode of Job Search Radio. I decided to do an AMA, and Ask Me Anything. And unlike the previous ones that I did, they were generally about job search. If I do them in the future, I'm going to pick a specific topic. And the one I chose for today is negotiating salary. Because, well, frankly, for most Americans, for many people in the Western world, negotiating is one of those taboo subjects. They're fearful of learning how to do it. They're fearful of actually doing it. Whereas in other cultures, hey, negotiating is part of the landscape. So if this is U.S.-centric advice for some of you, I apologize, but that's where I live. That's where I run into these issues. And I just wanted to say very simply, hey, there may be something you can still pull out of here. So I've got 4 questions that I've been asked on the subject. And the first one is, what is the worst mistake you can make in salary negotiations? Now, to me, the obvious answer is not negotiating. Most people don't negotiate. They whine a little bit. They don't carry themselves with strength and power and with certainty. Their fear overtakes them, and thus they appear nervous as they negotiate. To me, those elements are really the worst mistakes that people can make. Like any skill, the more you practice, the better you are at it. And even if you do mock negotiations with other people, even if you practice by negotiating in a store and discover that the worst thing that can happen is they say no, well, you need practice at salary negotiation. For the person who's changed jobs 10 times in their career, they may have had 15 negotiations, including turndowns, and they're widely spaced out, so the expertise isn't there. So the worst mistake in a salary negotiation to me is not negotiating, not practicing how to negotiate, and thus being like a babe in the woods who's lost and not knowing what to do. So that was my first answer. Here's the second question. I received a verbal offer from a hiring manager, but no reply from the recruiter. Should I stop or keep searching for a job until I have received a written offer? The one thing I don't know in this scenario is how much time has gone by. I'm going to answer it as this happened yesterday, and this is now a week from the verbal offer. So the first way in answering this, it happened yesterday, I would say be patient, but also keep interviewing. Until you have a written offer, you don't have an offer. Orally, you may have it, but you don't actually have the offer because the written piece of paper or email is your proof. I would get in touch with the hiring manager, whether this was yesterday or a week later, and say, could you give me an idea as to when I might hear from the recruiter because I haven't received the offer letter yet. If it's a week later, I would have hoped by now you would have gotten the message that there's something wrong here and that you should keep interviewing. Always keep interviewing until you have the document, because ultimately you do not have a job offer unless you have something on the company's letterhead, an email, an overnight letter sent to you that confirms the terms of employment. That's really about salary. It could be about bonus potential, restricted stock units, whatever's been negotiated. You don't have anything until it's in writing. And don't think of it as a contract. In most of the United States, it's a framework, and they can break it at any time by just firing you. Third question, how do I negotiate a job offer that requires international travel? I'm not sure what's meant here, so I'm going to, again, take a stab at it. I'm going to work with the assumption that this is about the conditions of the travel, not that it requires international travel and you're trying to get out of it. If you're trying to get out of it, hey, you might as well turn down the offer. They want you to travel. But looking at the terms of it, like, what class do you fly in? What hotel do you stay in? Expenses, expense reimbursement, how that's handled. All of that should be part of a negotiation. For example, if you learn that this firm is going to fly you and coach from New York to Singapore, I've done that trip. It is brutal. Don't do it. Negotiate the flights and what class they're going to fly you in to the best of their ability. Obviously, there are individual circumstances where they can't, get you business class or first class travel, but negotiate everything. What hotel you stay in, how they're going to reimburse you or pay for your expenses while you're traveling. Everything is fair game. And if you don't like the answer, you can walk away. Remember, the most power that you have is the ability to leave the negotiating table and say, this isn't working for me right now, and leave. End the conversation and move on to something else. That sends them back to square one, unless all along they had a second that they were also interested in which case it explains the tough negotiating. It doesn't matter to them, and you don't matter to them. Negotiate every term. Lastly, last question is, what are some tactics that everyone can use in salary negotiations? Well, the obvious thing is negotiate, but I mentioned that one before. As I always tell people, everyone can do what I call the easiest way to negotiate a higher salary for yourself. I have that video on YouTube. Watch it. It's about 10 minutes in length. It really is an easy negotiating tactic that you can practice and deliver on very well. But it involves a degree of theater, which I illustrate in the video. Watch that one. I think it will help you a lot. So I'm Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter. I hope you found this helpful. If you're interested in my coaching, you reach out to me through my website, thebiggamehunter.us. Learn about my services by clicking the tabs on top. I've helped a lot of people around the world with their negotiating, with their job searches, with their resumes and LinkedIn profile, and preparing them for interviews. Hope you have a great day. And by the way, if we're not connected on LinkedIn, send a connection request to me at linkedin.com/IN/the Big Game Hunter. Take care.